Hey guys, welcome back. It's Jason R. Jones here. It's been a little while since I've put anything out on YouTube, so I wanted to get back at it. One thing I've been wanting to do for a while is kind of walk you through how I do some of my edits once I get my files back from being scanned and get them into the Digital Darkroom. So I use Photoshop primarily for all my edits, and I don't like to do a lot of work to them. I just try to simply enhance them a little bit and help lead the eye where I think the eye needs to travel through the image. And I use various techniques to achieve that, a little sharpening and such. So this isn't going to be a high-level overview. This is going to just kind of walk you through a couple of my images and show you some of the things I've done to them. I do plan on doing a more high-level overview in the future and offering those on my website, kind of take you through all the basic tools that I use and some more advanced tools for some advanced edits that may need to be done. So we'll get more into that stuff in the future. And again, they'll be offered over at my website at jasonrobertjones.com. But without further ado, it's good to be back, and I'm going to take you through some edits that I did on one of my images, Nirvana, and then possibly walk through another image after that. So it's not going to be a long tutorial today, but just kind of getting the ball rolling again here for me on YouTube. So with that being said, I'll go ahead and open up Photoshop, which I already have opened up in the background, and select the image Nirvana. So this is the 4x5 scan of the image Nirvana that I had done, and I always have my scans done by a gentleman by the name of James Beck, and he hails in Colorado, just outside of Denver, I believe. But here is his website, so you can get an idea of what he's all about. But yeah, his website is jamesbeckdigital.com, and real quality work. He's been doing this for a long time. He now does it himself out of his home, has a couple different machines, the Heidelberg Tango Prime Scan being one of them, and this is a very high-end machine. So yeah, feel free to check him out. I highly recommend him. If you're going to get some scans done through him, you could always mention my name, Jason R. Jones, to him. Say that you were referred to him via me, and he may give you a first-time user discount of 10% or so. I think that's what I did when I had my first couple scans done. I'd mentioned that Ben Horn had referred me to him, which is how I found out about him. So thanks, Ben. And he gave me a little discount there, and every once in a while he'll send you something in the mail for 15% off scans and such. But beautiful work, and he's my guy to digitize my film. So we'll get back at it. So here was Nirvana after it was scanned. You can see, the rough edges of the film still, the punch holes where everything was hung to dry, and when it was put in the bath to have it developed. And didn't do a tremendous amount to this image, but definitely needed to be enhanced somewhat. So the first thing I generally do is I crop the image, obviously, to get rid of the Fujifilm stamps and the edges of the border of the image. And when I do that, I always set my crop tool here to 4x5 here in the ratios. So unconstrained is where it's set now. I've got a 4x5, 8x10 preset set up, and obviously this needs to be flip-flopped, so it would be 5x4, and that's going to keep me in the area of the aspect of my camera and my film, and I just kind of drag this out to the edges and get it as close as I can here to the edges so I don't get any of the black in there. May need to rotate it a bit. This one was pretty straight. And then I crop it, and when I do that, I make sure that I don't check this delete pixel crop, because you may want to go back sometime and fix your crop, and if you do that, you're going to delete the pixels on the outside of this edge that are cropped, and they'll be gone for good. So don't check that. Just leave it as it is. Once you're done, you can hit the click and it will crop it for you. I'm not going to go through that right now. Just going to cancel that out and back to normal here. So I'll show you now from this, the original, what I've done, and then walk you backwards through that. So here we are looking at Nirvana again. This is the final image that goes out to print. And I've obviously done some enhancements. As you can see, we'll just kind of bounce back and forth here. We can do that by turning off our layers here. So we'll go ahead and turn off all these layers, and we'll start with the original. This is what it looked like after it was cropped. So I noticed that this was my leading line here, really is what I felt, that this line was going to lead the eye back down. These vertical lines were going to lead the eye from this corner of the image, the bottom left corner of the image, over to the right top of the image. And really I feel that the subject here is the bluff up here, the dune bluff. And this is Pyramid Point over here on the Sleeping Bear Dunes National Lakeshore in Michigan, where I live. And so this was a nice summer, I think in August, late August, nice summer kind of sunset. And we had some beautiful clouds rolling in. And one thing I really liked about it was that the white caps here in the water and the clouds kind of mirrored each other here. We've got, the wave crashing here with the white caps here and here, and it kind of was like a sort of a mirror image of the clouds rolling in above. So I liked how that kind of played together. I wanted to kind of brighten some of this up to help bring the eye in. So what I usually do is I'll make a copy of my original layer here and add that on top. And primarily for sharpening purposes, I'll do that, but I'll just do it to have in case I do something destructive. Now, I try to work non-destructive. I don't like to use anything that's going to push pixels around and move them. So I use masks for just about everything, luminance masks, and that's what these are here, are luminance masks all stacked up. And I use some actions by Tony Kuiper called TK Actions, and that's this panel here. And I'll get more in depth into this stuff in another tutorial, like I said, and that'll be available on the website. But these are really powerful tools that are used to just affect via masks on luminance layers the different tonal ranges that you want to affect, so you're not doing a global adjustment to your image, and really comes in handy. So I think the first thing I did with this was I knew I wanted to lighten some areas up. So I added a burn and dodge layer mask here, which I created with this button here. And this will create basically a gray, neutral gray mask, like 80% gray, that sits over your image. And they come labeled already as dodging white paint, which is helpful, so you know to only use white paint here when dodging, and burning black paint. And you just grab your brush tool over here on the side, and you would select either white or black depending on what you want to do. In this case, I was going to select white because I wanted to lighten this up. And you can also use B on your keyboard, and that will also open a brush. That B is the hotkey to bring up the brush tool in Photoshop. So I did that, and we'll turn on the dodging layer here with the white paint, and you'll see a dramatic difference almost right away. So that's what I did primarily, was kind of bring the eye. I wasn't so concerned about this area. I did a little bit of lightening, but kind of started bringing the eye and brightening as I went back, and just wanted to enhance this kind of line that I had going here. So I brightened these up a bit. I selected, I used probably a lights tool over here to create a lights mask to do that, and painted in with my brush and lightened these areas up until they were to my liking, and changed the size of the brush, got back up into here, lighten this area up a little bit. So another thing I do also is I don't always use the brush tool to lighten areas up. I also will use a gradient tool, a gradient mask. So just as the brush, you can also use a gradient mask, and I did that up here because this was my area of interest right here. I really wanted the eye to kind of fall here. So by grabbing the gradient, you can change the shape of your gradient tool. You can go in there and you can grab different shapes. And I think I used the, sorry, that's the wrong tool. I want to go over here to the gradient tool, not the shapes tool, and grab that. So I grab this guy right here, which is a spherical circular gradient, and select that, and then paint with white, and then, you know, select, make sure I'm on the layer I want to effect, which is my dodging white paint layer. Select that layer, and then I'll start in the center point of where I want to affect the area, which is kind of where I want the eye to lead, and then I'll just draw that gradient out, and it just creates on the gray, it lightens that area up in a very soft sphere that you really don't notice with the eye, but it does more of a global adjustment to that point of interest, as a brightening point to that point of interest. So, and you can choose a real soft edge. My opacity on this is 12% right here. And that just kind of brings the eye in to where you want. You can also do the adverse. You can use black paint and darken down an area if you need to darken down an area. But in most cases, I'm going to want to lighten something up. So that's what I did there. So when I was happy with my lightening, I then went back in and I decided to do some burning. And there's a couple areas. Generally what I'll do is I'll do some burning to create a vignetting. I don't really use a vignette tool to do that. I kind of do it manually. So I'll grab my burning black layer here, and we'll select that, and you'll see what I did with that. So you can see how kind of darkened the edges here. And that kind of brings, again, the eye in more towards the center where I was looking to go, right in this area here. And I'll do that again with the gradient tool generally. So I'll grab my gradient tool over here. I'll grab just a regular gradient and kind of start on the outside and draw that line in and kind of make a little bit of a box around the image as we go through here. And the corners you'll see are kind of affected. So I might go on an angle here and kind of darken this area, darken this area. I try to do a mirror image on both sides and really just follow what's going on up here in the clouds. It was a little bit dark, so I kind of darkened this area up to mirror that. The clouds, the reason the clouds are so dark up here was I used a two-stop hard grad filter and set it right here along the water line, because my sky obviously was a little bit brighter than what I had going on here in my subject on the land here, the bluff and the shoreline. Now the water was maybe about a stop or two below what I was getting at the brightest point of the sky, which is probably in this cloud here. So it kind of neutralized and equaled out pretty good, but I suffered a little bit over here in the corner with some dark clouds in. You know, clouds aren't supposed to be, white fluffy clouds aren't supposed to be dark and ominous like this, but it didn't really bother me that much. It was, you know, late summer, you get different types of clouds rolling through. And I really wanted the focus to be here, so it didn't really bother me too much that happened. So that was the burning that was created, and you can just see that again. There's without the burning, and there's with the burn layer on, and the vignette I created. And then after that, what I did was, generally the last thing I'll do is the sharpening. Now that's not the case in this particular file I did, in this image. I did do some levels adjustments after the case and after the fact, and that's something that I felt like the white and black balances were not where they needed to be to create a punchy and crisp image, and especially for printing, that's where you're really going to notice that if your white and black point aren't set. So we'll go over that in a minute, but the next thing I did was I added a sharpening layer. So when I do my sharpening, I like to use the high pass tool to do that. There's a lot of different sharpening tools that you can use, Unsharp Mask, and several others, and we'll go through those different options in another tutorial. But the filter I generally use the most for my sharpening is here under Other, and it's the high pass filter. So what that will do when you click this, and another reason why you want a duplicate layer, is it will create a high pass filter on the layer that you've selected. So I would duplicate my original background layer like this, grab it down and just duplicate that layer. As the group, didn't want to do that. Get rid of that. Grab it, bring it down here, duplicate that layer. And then while that layer is selected, I would go up into my filter. I would grab the Other tool and high pass filter and select that. So this takes a bit. These files are pretty large here. They're almost 2 gigs when I get them scanned from James. So it tends to bog my machine down a bit. I'm using an older 15-inch MacBook Pro from 2012, and it's maxed out pretty good, but it doesn't have solid state drives in it, and it's older, so it definitely lags a bit. Excuse me. So it prepares the filter, it goes through that, and you'll see kind of what happens. There she goes. Okay. So I'll give you this preview here. And when you're adjusting the radius, your pixel radius, let me turn these layers off, because you're going to see immediately what it's showing you right now is the burn and dodge layer. So let me just cancel that real quick. Turn these off. Okay, then we're back where we started. So this should show you the actual image below it and not my burning and dodging luminance layers that I had above it. Okay, so now once we've had the filter applied, you're going to see that it grays out the image here, creating basically a mask over your image. And what you're going to do is you're going to adjust your radius here, and you're going to bring that up, and you'll see it gradually climb up until we're starting to see some of the image come through. Now you can see that here. Now you don't want to affect it this heavily. This is going to be extremely sharp, over sharp, and what you're seeing is you're getting haloing, and that haloing here will show up in your final image. So I'll back that down a bit, and you just really want to kind of see the edges. What the high pass filter is doing is it's allowing the lightness, the contrast between the light and dark of the image to show through. So those are going to be these areas here that are the lightest, are the edges. And the edges are what you really want to sharpen, so it gives it that perceived crispness. So I might ramp it up just a bit more. That's probably too much. Probably somewhere more in this area is where I'd stay, around 9.9 to 10 pixels, maybe 12 pixels, somewhere in there. And then once that's done, you'll hit OK and you'll apply that. It'll go through, it'll work its magic. It's going to create the high pass filter. Okay, and that's done. So that's what you get when you're done. So obviously that's not going to look so great. What you're going to want to do after that is you're going to go over here to your layers, and you're going to change the layer style to a overlay, and that's what you're going to get there, is the overlay. Okay, so that's what I've essentially done here already. So now the sharpening is already applied, so we should be able to see that by turning on and off the layer. So that's without sharpening, and that's with sharpening. And you can see, especially over here in this area in the rocks, if you watch, the sharpening changing without it, and then applying the sharpening. So that's done a global sharpening over the entire image. Now, I don't always want to affect the entire image, which is why I like to use this filter. And again, this is it's not going to, it's going to be in the end a luminance filter that's an overlay over your original filter. So if I turn off these background layers, you're back to the filter. So it's essentially just highlighting what's behind it. So I don't like to affect my clouds. I don't really care to have super sharp clouds. I want them to kind of appear fluffy and soft. And water, generally the same way. I might, some areas like over here where this wave is kind of crashing in and these white caps, might want to brighten some of those or sharpen those up. But really, I'm concerned with the land, the beach here, the rocks, the trees along the coastline, and then probably into this horizon area, those type of things. So after that's said and done, you can go, what you want to do is you want to apply a layer mask. And there's two ways to do that. I know there's a hotkey for this. I don't remember what it is off the top of my head. The reveal all is just going to put a white mask over top. If you click the hide all, it's going to put a black mask over the top. And that black mask here will hide every detail of the sharpening. So then what you're going to do is you're going to hit B to get your brush tool up, and we'll grab the brush and bring the it didn't do it, so we'll go again, grab brush, and I can adjust the size of my brush here, and we'll bring that up just a bit, make it a little bit bigger. That's probably pretty good for what I want to do for now. And I'll make sure I have my white paint selected, which I do, because that's going to paint the white in of the mask, revealing the mask. And I just start painting the areas here that I want to sharpen up. And you'll see that start to come through down here. I'm at a 6% opacity right now, so it's going to happen rather slowly. I like to do things a little bit lighter, that way I can kind of dial them in as I go and not dramatically affect it. But all said and done, we'll end up with what I did here, which is this layer is my sharpening layer. So there you have the high pass filter as sharpening. We'll turn back on the burn and dodge layers here so you can see what we did earlier, the effects of lightening up with the dodge and then the vignetting and the burning. And that's generally the workflow I'll do, not lots of effects. Now, something that I've been doing recently is once I'm done, I'll go through and I'll do a global levels adjustment to the image because I really want to set my white point and my black point. I want to set the whitest area of the image and the darkest area of the image. And that's going to be achieved by adding a levels adjustment mask here. And that's found down here in your mask tools. These are going to be like a luminance mask, so it's not going to actually affect your pixels. So levels is here. Click on the levels, it'll pop up, and we'll just turn that on right now, and I'll double click it. So here we'll see our histogram, and you can change the preset of that, but I'm concerned with the luminosity of that. I want to see my luminance layer. So here is your black point and your white point, and then this is the adjustments here on the actual histogram itself. Now the white point was originally set all the way to the right here. You can see that flat white information here. Now that was probably up here in the clouds, some areas here. So if I clip this area here, some of these really white areas, I'm not too concerned because there wasn't a ton of detail anyway. I'm not losing a lot of detail. The bulk of the information really starts here. And the same with the thing with the black layer. You can see the black level was falling off, so that adjustment was made. And then this is going to be your midtones adjustment here. So you want to play around with that a little bit, and to kind of help me see that and visualize that a little bit better, I kind of like to look at that as a grayscale. So I just created another luminance mask here of a black and white by going down into my masks and grabbing the black and white filter and throwing that up. And we'll turn that on. So I could kind of see what I'm really looking for here is tones. Not concerned with color, I'm not concerned with any of that. I'm really looking for my tones, my whitest point and my darkest point of the image. So we'll take a look at it without the adjustment that I did to my levels. And that was it. Pretty muddy, kind of gray, flat looking image. And you might go back and look at some of your edits in the past and take a look at this tool because it's very handy. Especially when it goes to print. You're really going to notice this when you print. It's going to look very muddy and flat. So this is it with the levels adjustments on. Much more vibrant. Definitely see, your white point coming in here, your dark point coming here, your black point coming in here. And it's gone from kind of a flat, muddy look to a more crisp, tonally contrasted image, which is going to print better. It's going to look better on screen, on the web, everywhere you're dealing with it. And then we'll just go ahead and turn back off our black and white layer so we can look at it in color, because this was color slide film, Fuji Velvia 100, I believe, is what I used on this image. And there you have it. So that's basically walking you through my edits. Now you'll notice down here, this is where Photoshop's going to tell you the color space you're working in. If you're working with digital cameras, it's generally going to be Adobe 1998, or you may be in Pro Photo or sRGB. sRGB I would strongly suggest being used only for web purposes, or something you need to, if you're working in sports or media and you need to get that up on the web quickly, because that is a compressed color profile. It's throwing out a lot of information. And this is a 16-bit color space that I'm working in here. So it's going to give you really the best coloring available currently in technology today. So you'll notice this is Chrome Space 100. And Chrome Space was created by another gentleman, and I'll give you some information on him later, Jay Holmes. And what this allows me to do is, again, non-destructively affect the color, either the vibrance or the desaturated look of an image. So if I wanted to kind of desaturate this image a little bit more, instead of grabbing, you know, a tool or one of these filters over here and grabbing a brightness saturation and doing it that way, because it's going to affect pixels of the image, I'll change the color space. And I don't assign the colors. Well, I don't actually convert the color space. I will assign a profile to this color space. So when I have my scans done, I've given James Beck this Chrome Space 100 color space file that he embeds into the image and then sends it to me. So when I get it, it's in Chrome Space. And when you want to actually do some affect that and change your profiles, you're going to go under your edit and you see your color settings, assign profile, convert to profile. Now, I would not suggest converting. Only use convert to profile if you're going to export this for print or for web. At that point, you can do the conversion there. For print, I don't even convert my color profiles unless mandated by the color lab, but I found a lab that will take my native profile and print it the way I want it. But to change the vibrance of this image, you would go to assign profile. Again, we'll cover some more of this stuff in a more high-level edit. I'll give you more details and links to the resources, but I'm just kind of going through this really quick here. So currently it's going to say the working space is Chrome Space 100 J Holmes. Now, if I want to assign that, and if I want to give it more vibrance or less vibrance, what I would do was I would go here and I click the profile, and then from my drop-down list where I've added, and you can see it already changed dramatically. Let's look at that again. This is your sRGB profile. Very limiting color space. This is the J Holmes profile. Huge difference. So we'll go back to profile sRGB and we'll go in here and you'll see that I've got all my Chrome Space profiles loaded here. So it's going to default to Chrome Space 100. And then above that are all the variances here. So this is +4, +8, +12. And it goes up to +99%. So that's going to extremely saturate the image. And if you want to work the other way, this is -4, -8, -12, all the way down to -99. That's going to desaturate the image dramatically the other way. So let's just take a look at that. Right now I'm right in the middle at Chrome Space 100. I'm going to saturate this baby all the way up to 99%. We'll go ahead and click that. And immediately you can see extremely oversaturated image here. But again, this is not going to actually affect the pixels of your image. This is just the color space that you're working in. So it's a non-destructive way to work with your image, which is what you always want to do, is work in non-destructive. There may be a point you want to clone something out, do some changes. Before you do any of this work that I've showed you today, go ahead and clone and do any of the actual pixel manipulation first, and then apply all these changes, because you don't want to do these changes and then do your cloning or fixing any spot removal after the fact, because that will show through in the luminance masks that you've created above it. So let's bring this down to maybe middle of the road. We'll go down now. Let's go down to 31% and see. We're backing it back down. And then let's take a look at the average. We're going to take this down to -60 and see how desaturated that looks. Okay, you can see right now pretty desaturated, still some sepia type tones coming through, and this may be an artistic direction you want to take it. And we'll go all the way to -99. It's going to almost appear monochrome black and white right here. But really tonally rich. Looks good as a black and white this way. And so this is how I would recommend doing any color changes. We'll go set this back to Chrome Space 100, the default. And there we have it. So I'll cancel that out. So that is Nirvana. That's what I have done to it. And that's pretty much where it sits right now. And when I go to print this image, this is how it'll look. This is my master file that we're looking at right here. So hopefully you found this to be enlightening, interesting, and give you kind of a glimpse into how I do my edits. Again, I'll be working on some more higher level edits in the future that will be available on my website, jasonrobertjones.com, for download. And we'll walk you through, from the beginning to end on some of the newer images that I'm going to be receiving pretty soon back from development and getting scanned from our trip up to the North Shore of Lake Superior. So that's it for today, and hope you enjoyed this quick tutorial, and thanks for watching, and thanks for all those of you that have newly subscribed to me. I really appreciate it. I hope you find this content helpful and stimulating, and it gets you motivated to go out there and to capture some images. And working in film or whatever you're working in, it doesn't really matter. It's more about your artistic vision and creating giving your look on the world, your view on the world, and sharing that with others. So till then, we'll see you later. I'm gonna sign off.